My ex-wife demanded a larger alimony payment after learning about my promotion, but what she didn't know was that I had discovered her secret. I exposed her infidelity and turned the tables just in time. But before I get into that, let me take you back to the beginning of my marriage. I met Julia when I was in college. It was, without a doubt, love at first sight for me, though it took her a while to see it. When she finally agreed to date me, it felt like everything fell into place. We were inseparable. We spent nearly 7 years together, 7 years of laughter, of shared dreams, of plans. But then, one day, without warning, she told me she wanted a divorce. That was it. She couldn't stay married to me any longer. I fought to hold on to what we had. I promised her that we could work through whatever was bothering her, whatever had made her want to walk away. I suggested counseling, though. Honestly, I couldn't see what was wrong with our marriage. But she wasn't open to that. She told me she was done, that the spark had faded, and that she didn't feel anything for me anymore. That hit me like a punch to the stomach. I still loved her. I always had, but I wanted her to be happy, even if it meant losing her. So I didn't fight the divorce. At the time, Julia wasn't working, and I was. So she received alimony. But it wasn't just any amount. No, she demanded an outrageous sum. And, for reasons I now regret, I gave in. I was so desperate to keep the peace, to hold on to any hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd come back. I agreed to her terms, without question, even though I didn't want to. I was a fool for her. That was almost 2 years ago. Life has changed drastically since then. After the divorce, I sank into a pit of depression. Julia had left without so much as a second glance, without checking in on me. It hurt. I couldn't fathom a life without her. But I eventually clawed my way out of that darkness. Therapy helped, but the road was long and painful. The whole time I thought she loved me too. I thought we had something real. But after all this, I began to see the truth. Maybe she hadn't loved me as deeply as I loved her, and maybe that was why our marriage fell apart. The more time passed, the more I realized I didn't feel anything for her anymore. And that was the turning point. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, but it happened. I no longer loved her. It was freeing, in a way. It gave me the strength to stand up for myself, to stop letting her walk all over me. I reached out to her, hoping we could renegotiate the alimony. I suggested that maybe we could lower the amount, just a little, since she'd been receiving it for so long. Her response? I'm not willing to discuss anything without my lawyer present. That was it. No compromise, no reason, just a cold refusal. She was entitled to what she wanted, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was maddening. I had worked tirelessly for everything I had, but somehow she believed she was entitled to more. All because she'd been a housewife for a few years. And honestly, that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the way she left me without a word of explanation, no closure, no nothing. Yet, here she was, back in my life, demanding more money. I was furious. The legal process felt like a losing battle. Her lawyer was relentless, ruthless even, and I knew I was just another step away from giving in to their demands. But then something unexpected happened. It felt like fate itself had my back this time. I met up with a few old friends at a fancy restaurant for dinner and drinks. It was a place far from my usual haunts, so I didn't expect to run into anyone I knew. I got a little carried away. I was venting, talking about Julia, how she had screwed me over, how everything felt so unfair. I didn't hold back. The drinks flowed, and so did my words. I guess I got louder as the night went on, and before I knew it, I was ranting about her like she was my enemy. My friends laughed along with me, but looking back now, I realize it was pretty embarrassing. And then, out of nowhere, a man approached our table. He looked agitated, even angry. He asked if I was talking about Julia, and then he used her full name. I wasn't thinking clearly, not with the alcohol coursing through my veins, but I told him I was, indeed, talking about her. I even apologized, thinking maybe he was a friend. That's when I made the mistake of calling her a gold digger. I told him how she had left me without so much as an explanation after 7 years of being together. It's embarrassing to admit, but I said it all in that moment. And it turns out, the man was Julia's boyfriend's brother. He walked away quickly, clearly upset. I showed him a photo of Julia and me from my wallet, proving I hadn't fully moved on. It was awkward, uncomfortable, yet somehow it felt like I had just gotten a little bit of the closure I had been craving for so long. I hadn't fully moved on when Julia called me the day after that incident. Her voice was filled with fury, and she unleashed on me for a solid half hour. She told me that, because of my drunken outburst, her boyfriend wasn't speaking to her anymore. I couldn't bring myself to accept the blame. I didn't think it was my fault, but she kept insisting that I needed to fix this, that I shouldn't have aired our dirty laundry in a restaurant. My shouting had crossed a line. she said, and I needed to make things right. Then, as if to add insult to injury, she cursed me out one last time before abruptly hanging up. I was furious. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to turn this around on me. She was the one lying to her boyfriend. Yet somehow, I was the bad guy? It was maddening. As she raged at me over the phone, she mentioned her boyfriend a few times. His name, Jeremy, slipped from her lips with such familiarity. With that nugget of information in my hands, something stirred in me. I couldn't let it go. I had to find out more about this Jeremy guy. It was like an itch I couldn't scratch. Since Julia and I weren't connected on social media anymore, I had to get creative. I reached out to a mutual friend, begging to use her account to do some digging. It wasn't easy to convince her, but I played the pity card, telling her this could save me from going broke due to the alimony. After some hesitation, she reluctantly agreed, and I dove into the search. As I scrolled through Jeremy's online life, I found something that made my stomach churn. He had posted pictures from a wedding. Julia was in almost every single one. That wedding, it had been Julia's cousin's. I remembered it clearly. I had been sick with the flu, but Julia had insisted on going alone. She was so close with her cousin, she couldn't miss it. I had been disappointed, left alone to recover while she went off to celebrate. Now, here was proof. Jeremy and Julia had crossed paths at that wedding. And now it all made sense. Jeremy had no ties to her world. He didn't know anyone she knew. But somehow he was connected to her. In a way, I had never imagined. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the timing of it all, the way she'd been so cold and distant before the divorce, there was no way this was a coincidence. The more I uncovered, the more certain I became. But I needed something concrete, something that would make the truth undeniable. I called my lawyer immediately. I had to know everything. What if Julia had been seeing this guy all along? What if she had been cheating on me before filing for divorce? This could be my chance to finally cancel the alimony she didn't deserve. My lawyer got to work quickly. He tracked down Jeremy, spoke to people in his neighborhood, and soon enough, it all fell into place. Julia had been living with Jeremy ever since she filed for divorce. The timeline lined up perfectly. Around the same time she told me she wanted out, she had moved in with him. That was it. That was the smoking gun I needed. But there was more. When my lawyer dug deeper, he discovered something else. Something that made my heart drop. Julia had a 2-year-old son. I felt a rush of disbelief. A child. My ex-wife, the woman who had been so cold to me, had been living with Jeremy and raising his child. That sealed it. She had cheated on me. There was no denying it now. I couldn't contain my triumph. Finally, I had the proof I needed. The alimony was as good as gone. The last time we sat in that mediation room, her lawyer had to concede. Julia didn't deserve a penny. She had been unfaithful, and that was enough to disqualify her from any further support. It felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I had won. But of course, I didn't stop there. I should have. I really should have. But the satisfaction of winning, of finally getting the upper hand, wasn't enough. I still felt this overwhelming need for vengeance. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but in my defense, I had been celebrating a little too much that night. I texted Jeremy. I didn't think it through. I should have just let it go, but I didn't. I told him that while I loved Julia more than anyone ever could, I didn't envy him. I told him that Julia hadn't stolen my wife. She had stolen a gold digger. I even suggested that the only reason she left me for him was because of the baby. I said if it weren't for the kid, she probably would have stayed with me, and it would have been a short fling. But now, with a child in the mix, she had to latch onto him. I told him that they should break up for the sake of the kid, because no child deserved a mother like that. I regret it. I truly do. But at the time, I didn't care. I was too drunk, too angry, too hungry for that last bit of revenge. Julia, of course, found out. She was furious. She blamed me for everything, everything that had gone wrong. And somehow, it was my fault that things with Jeremy weren't working out. She even posted online, accusing me of sabotaging her life. And all of our friends sided with her. It's strange, isn't it? I tried to get revenge on her, but she was the one who had cheated first. Yet nobody's talking about that. Nobody cares that she destroyed our marriage. They're only focused on what I did afterward, like my actions somehow outweigh hers. Now I'm left wondering if I really did cross the line. Did I go too far by suggesting that Jeremy leave her? I'm struggling to figure out what to do next. And I could really use some advice. Am I the bad guy in this situation? Update. Hey everyone. First off, thank you so much for all the advice. I've read through every comment, and I appreciate all of you who took the time to respond. A lot of you have pointed out that I have a drinking problem. I guess I never really considered how much it was affecting me until now. If I hadn't been drinking, I wouldn't have made so many mistakes and would have nothing to regret. And honestly, you're right. I'm going to work on it. I'll seek professional help because deep down, I know I need it. I've got a long road ahead, but it's time to fix this. I know I have a drinking problem. I've been told this countless times. When I get drunk, it's like I lose control. I go off the rails. And it's not just a little misstep, it's a full-on disaster. I've seen it, felt it, lived it. The way it's impacted my life, negatively to say the least, has been undeniable. But here's the thing. I'm done pretending like it's not a problem. I see it now, and I want to get better before this turns into something irreversible, before I lose myself completely to it. But there's one thing I will not apologize for. Not to Julia. Not now. Not ever. She never apologized to me, not even after it was exposed that I knew about her affair with Jeremy. She didn't care about any of that. She wasn't sorry. Her only concern was the alimony. She was upset that she might lose that. But regret? Real remorse for what she did to me? No, she didn't feel that. When she left, I was shattered. A wreck. It wasn't just the divorce that tore me apart. It was the fact that she didn't even care to look back. She didn't care about the years we spent together. Not one glance back to see if I was okay. We'd been together for so long. She should have at least valued that. But she didn't. She walked away without so much as a second thought, leaving me to wonder what went wrong, what I could have done differently, what I could have fixed. I spent months crawling out of that hole. It was like trying to climb a mountain with no hands. But she didn't care. She never once stopped to think about the person she was leaving behind. The person she'd promised to be with, for better or for worse. She didn't have the courage to tell me the truth about why she was leaving. She just disappeared, leaving me to face the unknown. So, no, I don't regret what I did to her. Not a single bit. She deserved every bit of it. And now, she's going to feel just as hurt as I did. The circle of life, I guess. What goes around, comes around. Update. A couple of hours ago, something happened that I'm still trying to process. It's been almost a month since I first posted here, and Julia and I haven't spoken since she was served. I assumed she had moved on, dealing with her own life, her custody battle, her son, all of it. But then, out of nowhere, she called me. It threw me off completely. I didn't expect it. I wasn't sure what her angle was, so I did something smart for once. I recorded the call, just in case. You never know when someone might say something that could come back to bite them. The second I picked up, it started. She was yelling at me, furious. She accused me of ruining her life, of being the worst person in the world. She said that she was glad she left me, that she couldn't imagine spending another day with a loser like me. And then, the words hit harder. She admitted she only stuck around as long as she did because of the money. That's all I was good for, in her eyes. But even that wasn't enough once I became clingy and annoying. And the truth came out. She'd been cheating on me, not just with Jeremy, but with several other men. I was too blind to see it, too stupid. But now, she had the perfect excuse. She was pregnant. The positive test was her out, her ticket to finally leave me without any guilt. And she felt relieved. Relieved that she could walk away and be with someone she actually liked. I was stunned. My mind was racing, trying to keep up with the weight of her words. But then she went on. She said I took the two things she valued most, her partner and her son. Now she was fighting for custody, and according to her, it was all my fault. I had put the idea into Jeremy's head. Somehow it was all my fault. I didn't even understand how that made sense. If she had been honest with Jeremy from the start, if she hadn't lied about her marital status when they met, maybe things would be different. But no, she kept everything hidden, and now she was blaming me. Me. I couldn't believe it. The audacity. She's the one who made all the bad decisions, and now she's pointing the finger at me. She's an idiot, and an even bigger one for calling me after all this time, just to rub in the fact that she's a serial cheater. I felt the weight of her words, and it stung. When the call ended, I was left with a hollow feeling. She told me she wished she had never met me, that I was the worst thing to ever happen to her. That one hit hard. For a moment, I thought I was going to fall apart again. I didn't want to slip back into that dark place, to cry on my couch like I had so many times before. But I held it together. I told myself it wasn't worth it. I couldn't go back to that. This was supposed to be a new chapter, a new start. I couldn't let her tear me down again. But now, I'm considering sending that voice recording to Jeremy. He needs to know the truth. Maybe it'll help him in the custody battle. I'm not a judge, and I'm not here to decide if Julia is fit to be a mother. But after everything, I think I can make an exception. Maybe this is my way of getting back at her. Call it what you will, social service, revenge, whatever. I'll let Jeremy figure out what to do with it. Update. So, I finally sent the recording to Jeremy. He hadn't responded to my drunken text a couple of weeks ago, but he didn't block me either. It was strange. Still, I managed to get through to him. I apologized for the things I said in that text, things I didn't mean. But then I sent him the recording. I told him he could use it if he wanted to for the custody case. It felt like the right thing to do. I don't know if he'll use it, but that's his choice now. The bottom line is, I've done what I can. I've given him everything he needs. And as for Julia, well, she's done. Update. I just got word from someone who isn't even part of our old friend circle. Apparently, Julia lost custody of her son. She only has supervised visitation rights now. Jeremy found out the truth. Julia had been cheating on him too. Some guy from his workplace confessed to him, unable to keep the secret any longer. And now, he has the recording I sent him. It seems like Julia isn't exactly fit to be a mother right now. I'm not sure of all the details, but it's clear that karma is catching up with her. I don't feel bad for her, not anymore. She brought this on herself. As for our old friends, I don't speak to them anymore. They've shown their true colors, talking behind Julia's back. They never had my back, even though she was the one who was cheating. But whatever, they can all keep their skewed priorities. The point is, Julia's done, and honestly, I couldn't be happier.